This project started with an email from the Crafts Council inviting me, along with I didn't know how many others, to submit proposals for a new range for Red House. And Red House is iconic in arts and crafts and furniture making, and has left an indelible mark on every designer maker since. So it was a project that I just knew was so far up my street that I just couldn't not go for it full throttle. And so that's what I did. I read the brief, I talked about it with my brother, who is the co-designer of the piece, and immediately we realized that this thing was going to be about fire and burning, and it was going to be a public thing. So Red House is an iconic piece of design and architecture and of international importance. It was designed by William Morris and Philip Webb as Morris's home, and is a mecca of arts and crafts design. The piece that I'm making for Red House is called Tending the Flame, and its function is to sit in the cafe and be used to display cakes and other items that are going to be available for people to buy. The piece is being inducted into the collection at Red House as a contemporary response to the original range that once sat in the kitchen. The original range was made in cast iron and would have been a black piece with a stove inside to cook on. Although my piece isn't going to be used for the same purpose, we wanted to invoke the idea of fire and the stove by using fire as a mark maker on our piece. So that's why in the garden at Red House we're going to be setting the piece alight in what we're calling the burn ceremony, which will leave this indelible mark which speaks of how it was made. The idea of tending the flame was actually metaphorical in that it evokes the spirit of the arts and crafts, but it's also literal in that because the piece is sitting in an existing fireplace and because there used to be a fire that was stoked in the original range, we want to rekindle that fire and use it as a mark maker in the finished piece. And that's why when complete, the piece is going to be delivered to Red House and it's going to be set on fire in the garden in what we're calling the burn ceremony. Today, I've been given a joint cutting workshop at Red House where I've been teaching stakeholders and other people associated with Red House how to cut dovetail joints, which is a really traditional joint that was this like a mark of the arts and crafts. It takes quite a lot of skill to cut and is very traditional in its in the way that it's made and its function. It's often used on the edges of drawers and corners and things like that. So that's why it's a really important joint for this project. In teaching people to cut this joint, I'm passing on those craft skills, which is a really crucial tenet of the arts and crafts movement, and gives the project a legacy that if I was to make it all entirely myself, it wouldn't have. It also engages stakeholders in the local community in having a stake in what we're going to put into Red House rather than it be foisted upon them from above. The other thing that this joint cutting workshop does is provide a set of joints which are actually going to be used to make a part of the piece called the urn, which is going to collect the ash from this burn ceremony. It's not about worshipping those ashes, it's about worshipping the means by which those ashes were created, and that's through understanding materials and understanding how the fire is going to affect the wood when it's burned. The third part is that the offcuts from the joint cutting workshop are going to be used as the fuel to start this burn event, this burn ceremony, and so I'm calling it a closed loop. It's like the piece exists in this closed loop where all of its waste is used to fuel the fire that's used to mark the piece when it's burned.